Hello, I'm Christine Johns, and this PowerPoint covers the general crime scenes investigation techniques and methodologies. There are different types of crime scenes, which include indoor, outdoor, and conveyance. Outdoor crime scenes are the most difficult to investigate. Exposures to the elements such as wind, rain, as well as heat, or any kind of animal activity can contaminate your crime scene. Other factors, such as not properly securing the crime scene, can lead to contamination as well. If the crime has been committed in both an indoor or outdoor scene, the outdoor crime scene must be processed first, as it's most vulnerable. Indoor crime scenes have a significant lower chance of contamination because of the lack of exposure from other elements, except for people. People can be your number one issue. Conveyance crime scenes committed utilizing transportation, such as in a robbery, carjacking, theft, sexual battery, or even homicides. Each type has different procedures. When investigating conveyance crime scenes, it is essential to look beyond the conveyance itself. An example of this would be footprints or shoe prints of someone fleeing the scene. Regardless of where the crime scene is committed, all crime scenes are the beginning point for solving the crime and must be thoroughly investigated. Primary crime scenes are where the crime has been committed, and secondary is where the piece of evidence may be found. The sequence order in crime scene processing would be first to secure the scene. Upon arrival of the scene, make sure everyone is safe and secure the scene in order to preserve any evidence. This may include first arresting any suspects and obtaining medical assistance for your victims. Marking the crime scene with tape is often used. Be sure to separate your witnesses. This is to keep your witnesses from working together and coming up with a single story and sharing details that they may or may not have any firsthand knowledge of. Scan the scene. This step gives investigators an overall picture of the scene, and this will help identify areas that could potentially be related to this crime. See the scene. Take photographs. As many pictures as needed to ensure that all items are identified, pictures taken, and a precise picture of the crime scene itself has been taken, both up close and from a distance. Sketch the scene. You want to make sure that you have sketched the scene. Includes objects on the scene itself, the location that you found your evidence, the direction of north on your sketch, what time the sketch was completed, the location, and the case number. And you'll also need to note that this initial sketch will not be to scale. It is possible that the drawing could be used in court at a later date. Your draft drawing is the one that you're going to make on the crime scene itself. A finished drawing is a precise drawing of the crime scene completed, and it's usually back in your laboratory. You're going to search for evidence. A thorough search is conducted to identify any evidence that may have been overlooked in previous steps. This search can follow several patterns, which we will discuss later, and the lead investigator will be the one to choose one. Secure and collect any evidence Using specific techniques and procedures, these techniques will be determined by your SOPs back in various individual agencies. Each piece of evidence is logged into an evidence log and marked with an evidence label. The label features the chain of custody, and each person who touches that piece of evidence will need to ensure that they properly fill out that evidence tag. These tags will be used in court. Your search methods. One search method to follow would be the point-to-point, essentially following the evidence. Now, this way to search is suitable for crime scenes with multiple points of interest and needs to be established clear paths for an investigator to follow. It's actually a natural way that an investigator will follow into a crime scene. And they will move from evidence to evidence. For example, a drawer has been ajarred. The victim has been found on the sofa right just inside the door with a bullet casing had found in the living room. And the back door wide open. Well, the investigator can then follow the evidence through the jarred front door, through the living room, into the kitchen, and out the back door. The advantage, this is very quick. The disadvantage, it can often be disorganized. When you walk into a scene, sometimes you might miss that crucial piece of evidence, trying to follow evidence, the obvious evidence. The next would be a strip or line. You have to stay in your line to search for your zones. Staying in line, shoulder to shoulder with your search mates is a very good way to do this, and everyone searches their 12 inches or however wide your strip is. You have to be careful though, using this one, to stay in your zone and not to cross over into other zone. That way that you do not miss anything in your zone. Now the zone or the quadrant, you divide a scene into smaller areas, and each area can be divided up as much as need be. For example, you could have a 15-acre outdoor arena that needs to be searched. Everyone could have 1 acre, or it could be as small as a vehicle, and everyone takes 1 seat. So there's 4 seats in a car, and everyone takes their 1 seat. It's all depending on the number of personnel that you have available and the area size that you have to search. A spiral search pattern can be used as advantage can be used by one investigator. Essentially, you circle your way into the victim, and you circle your way out. And it's either way, works just as well. Your aerial search is used by your fixed wing or helicopter search. If you're looking for a large object, an airplane explodes mid-air and you're looking for pieces of that airplane, would be one example. Or another example is often seen is when a suspect is on the run. Some agencies will have a helicopter launch to find the suspect. That helicopter equipped with infrared will have a higher search radius than just a human on foot. Grid searches are you search in multiple directions. So essentially, you search in 2 directions at the same time. For example, you go through search north to south, and then you move from east to west. This can ultimately increase your thoroughness, and it could be used for any size area scene. This means that each area will be searched at least twice. This does require, as a general rule, extra personnel, but it does enable all areas to be searched twice. The crime scene safety. The International Identification Safety IAIS sets guidelines to protect investigators at crime scenes as well as laboratory personnel from infectious agents and dangers unseen. Crime scene investigators encounter a variety of biohazard material at every crime scene. That can include infectious disease, blood, and foul odors. Personnel protective equipment is necessary at all times to prevent exposure to any chemicals or any unknown infectious diseases. Chemical boots will be worn, protect the feet from walking through any unforeseen matter, including bodily fluids. Gloves should always be worn. Mask, respirators, some kind of goggle or face shields. Keep in mind, infectious diseases may always linger in the air or on any surface of a crime scene. To prevent contamination to that investigator, he or she must always wear full PPE. Contamination of the crime scene. Contamination is introducing something new into the crime scene. Each time you interact with the crime scene, you leave something behind or take something away. It is essential that you minimize this interaction. Preventing crime contamination begins with each officer's. Basic rules are officers must refrain from eating, drinking, and using tobacco products, engaging in any other behavior that could cause them to deposit trace evidence of that crime scene. Wearing the personal protective equipment, the PPEs, will also help prevent adding to the contamination of the crime scene. Some general rules are, if your presence is not required on that scene, do not enter it. Every person's presence, the crime scene, should be explainable and necessary. If you are on scene, your presence is no longer needed, leave. When arriving on the crime scene, be careful where you parked. This too, you can drive over evidence and destroy a chance of solving the crime. Always be cautious where you step on a crime scene. You should use the same path to enter and exit the scene. No matter how many times you have searched, you should always scan for evidence as you move through the scene. It is not uncommon to find new evidence as you move around. Wear gloves and do not touch anything that is not absolutely necessary. You will only have one shot at this crime scene, so the scene must be secured immediately. Everything from start to finish will need to be documented, and the investigator will need to determine what is evidence and what can remain exactly where it is located. Each evidence crime scene will be different. It is critical to describe each crime scene accurately because it will be essential to be able to reconstruct that crime scene, especially once you make it into court. Keep in mind your agency's SOPs and follow them at all times. Overall, is remember the critical essentialness of being able to reconstruct that crime scene.